listening to Practice on Purpose, where physicians can explore how to set up their career on purpose from the very beginning to stay connected to their purpose for their entire career. I'm Dr. Nicole Eull, a health psychologist with decades of experience in healthcare, from the front lines of a level 1 trauma center to the leadership in one of the largest healthcare systems in the country. I'm passionate about physician well-being and creating mentally healthy workplaces. If you want to thoughtfully establish a career that aligns with your values and passions and ensure a long and rewarding life as a physician, then you've come to the right place. Today, we're talking about integrative psychiatry and how music, art, and fashion can improve your mental health. Our guest is Dr. Mona Amini, and Dr. Amini is a pioneering psychiatrist, wellness expert, and the visionary founder of Monvi Mind Wellness, an elite concierge psychiatry practice in Scottsdale, Arizona. She specializes in guiding patients through the complexities of stress, burnout, and life transitions. Beyond her practice, Dr. Amini is a sought-after consultant, advisor, and medical director, working with organizations that seek progressive solutions to mental health challenges in professional and corporate settings. She's a passionate advocate for the role of music, fashion, and cultural influences in fostering emotional balance and mental clarity. My goodness, how exciting. So thank you so much, Dr. Amini, for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today.
I'm really excited to get into some of this stuff, and I think that our listeners will learn some stuff that they might be applying to their professional careers and also their personal mental health. So hopefully we'll have some good stuff. So can you tell us a little bit about your specialty and a brief intro to what you're currently doing?
Sure. So I am a founder of a concierge practice, as you had mentioned, Monvi Mind Wellness in Scottsdale, Arizona. The inception of my practice was latter part of 2023. And ultimately, I just wanted to essentially help people in the landscape of mental health, but not just with the typical psychotropic medications as managing, your symptoms. Really, it's all aspects of what mental and physical health are about. And throwing into the algorithm or the treatment plan, if you will, lifestyle, diet, discussions on relationships, boundaries, intimacy, as well as supplementations. If there are any nutritional deficiencies, I offer a mobile IV nutrition, as well as mobile lab testing, pharmacogenomic testing, psychotropic med management if necessary, and I provide the therapy as well in the practice. And conjunction of what I'm doing with my private practice, I do speaking engagements, teaching and social media, thought leadership and social media engagement, ultimately across all platforms. Mostly my passion is about destigmatizing mental health and allowing individuals to feel a lot more comfortable in pursuing mental health treatment, whatever that be. And that doesn't necessarily mean with a psychiatrist. It could just mean, starting your path with a therapist, licensed social worker, and also managing, directing, doing administrative work with different organizations across Arizona and other states as well.
That's so important, all that advocacy work. And I think that is improving over time, especially with newer, younger generations. I think they're better at this, at seeking the mental health care that they need. And as a psychologist, of course, I agree with you that it's such a valuable resource that a lot of people don't take advantage of. So that's so much there, and you provide such comprehensive treatment. Obviously, that wasn't where you started. So our show focuses on early career professionals and physicians, and I'd love to hear a little bit about how you chose psychiatry and tell us a little bit about your initial training after residency.
Sure. So I was probably one of the very, very few out there that when I started med school, I already knew the specialty that I wanted to go into, and that was specifically psychiatry. I dabbled in interests of maybe a specialty or two, but ultimately it stuck with me throughout the trajectory of the 4 years of medicine or medical school. And then beyond residency, I was a new mother. And so I wanted to make sure that I was forging ahead, but being financially sound with, school loans in mind. My husband is a physician as well, and just being mindful of, the work-life balance. Back then, I was calling it work-life balance.
Hmm.
We matured into different words and different terms over time, but at that time, I signed on with a locums agency, and I did that for several months before full-time work with the community
Hmm.
mental health system. But since that time too, I always wore different hats. So I was always augmenting with some moonlighting or consulting work. And I was working with different types of inpatient hospitals and or substance use rehab centers, um, dabbling into other kinds of clinical work because I also wanted to experience and see just so that I'd have a better outlook and understanding of all things psychiatry on more of an independent practice level.
Hmm.
When you're a resident, it's a different story, right? You have that protection of your supervisor, your attending physician, your
Right.
director. When I was doing this more on my own, it was no, this was my own learning curve, and I needed to educate myself on all levels, whether
Hmm.
that was consulting in the medical hospitals versus, other added aptitudes of treatment. So it was an enlightening experience, and again, it was a stepping point and a foundation to where I was over the next 10 plus years.
I think this is so vital to some people I hear that have these successful and interesting career paths. Is they weren't afraid to do little experiments. And I think we get stuck in either this or this thinking, and I
Mhm.
have to give up this to pursue this other possible passion. And what if I hate it? And I just, when I
Right.
coach physicians, I try to say, hey, listen, you don't have to do it's not either this or this. There are ways to try things out
Yeah.
without committing. So you then at some point took a foray into trying and experimenting and experiencing physician leadership. Can you tell us a
Yes.
little bit about what that was like for you?
Ultimately, I've always had a passion and a knack for leadership, as far back as I can remember, even from
Mhm.
elementary school, student council, and all of those fun extracurriculars. So, leadership is a little bit more of a natural thing for me. Tenacity of that, and being I served as chief resident during my residency as well. I just really enjoy the teaching. I enjoy that supervisory role and really taking people under my wing, mentoring them, and serving as a mentee as well. I mean, I want both aspects, right? So when I had when I had discussions, for example, with organizations and building that network and establishing that network while you're in residency in the same city is also ideal, and it's pivotal for you because people know you and they understand who you are, so that when you are independently practicing, you have the capability to say, hey, I'm available now, and
Mhm.
here's where I want to go in terms of my direction and career and leadership. And sometimes things will fall in your lap, whether or not you want to pursue that. That's kind of how things went for me. I'd go into independent roles as an independent contractor or IC, and then I'd have something fall in my lap as to, hey, we want to build out this program. What if you took a leadership level into that? Or,
Mhm.
hey, we're, acquiring this particular large organization. How would you like to serve as a chief medical officer for
Mhm.
that role? So those are things that, you're really being very diligent. They see how your work is, your work ethic, and obviously opportunities will exist where you can apply for them, but sometimes just by your network alone and your relationships built, they will fall into your lap.
So I'm going to challenge you just a little bit on that because I think that you're being a little modest. And I think that you're saying it fell into your lap, but it fell into your lap because you were there. You
Mm,
were out
yeah.
there doing these experiments. You just said, sometimes your network and relationships
Sure.
will create those opportunities, and you built those relationships. You put in the time
Yeah.
and you showed yourself to be reliable. And I think that there may be a lot of people, especially when you're younger, feel that it's shady or inappropriate or weird to
Mhm.
build relationships or network. And I think that, I mean, I feel like that's how it's done. I'm always going to go to the doctor that my girlfriends like, or I'm always going to get my hair cut by someone who gave me a verbal recommendation, and not, yeah, or who I have a verbal recommendation from a friend, not the person who's just in a list of people in the phone book or and on the internet, in a Google search. It's, so I think that don't be afraid. I guess what I'm saying is, don't be afraid to do the
Yeah.
work like you did and build those relationships, because then they don't really fall into your lap. You've created that
Right.
relationship, right?
I completely agree. No, you're nurturing them along the
Mhm,
way for sure.
mhm,
And it's really something that I really believe in. And I talk to my patients about this because a lot of my patients currently, they're high achievers, they're
mm,
C-suite execs, or, retired execs. And some of the things that I talk to them about are really nurturing these relationships over time, because you don't know, in a few years, 5, even 10 years down the road, there's an organization, there's a company, or there was an executive that you worked with that was
yes.
maybe on more of a mid supervisory level that is now at the C suite role, that remembered how you made them feel, how you made
Mhm,
them feel heard, the respect that was delivered while you were working with them as a team. And they're going to be knocking at your door or calling you
yeah,
or texting you and saying, "Hey, I'm building this, or I have this now. What do you think if you came on board?"
right.
And those are the seeds that you planted months, years, however long ago, that will continue to flourish and exist and build those flowers in that
Mhm.
garden over time.
That's beautiful. And just as a side note on that, when I used to work in a residency program and we were selecting the next year of residents, we not only rated the supervisors, the attendings, and the
Yes.
residents, we asked the office staff to rate the candidates. How did they treat you? Were they
Yes.
respectful? And you would be amazed to hear what some candidates do in front of the office staff that they don't
Mhm.
do in front of other people. So, always, I think it's such good advice that you're giving, to just always be
Yes.
respectful to everyone, because everyone's watching, right?
Yes.
So now own your own practice as you described. And can you tell us, I think a lot of people would love to know how you decided to make that move, because it's a big move, right? It's a risk. So how
It
did you
is.
decide to make that move, and what makes your practice unique?
I had a lot of just desire to do this for a few years, and it just, there was a few things that the straw that broke, the camel's back, if you will. And at one point in time, I had to really reflect on where my next steps were going to be in terms of where I wanted to be in career and in life, personally and professionally. And ultimately, I was just tired of the rigmarole of traditional psychiatry and the traditional practices,
Mhm.
because I was not seeing patients get benefit out of it.
Mm,
Ultimately, over time, maybe, but there was a number of different circumstances in which they would improve or get
mhm,
benefit. And so I built my practice on the premise of a very, very limited amount, exclusive amount of individuals. I'm providing the therapy, I'm providing psychiatric management if needed, and all of the other kind of intertwinings of lifestyle and integrative
mhm,
psychiatry medicine. So we do potentially micronutrients. We're talking about food as medicine and such. And I believe that, and we have plenty of data and backed research on this, that these are the most ideal,
mm,
um, treatment plans, if you will, for patients to improve and benefit over time, because we have seasons of change in life. That's just human nature. We
mhm,
will have really great, happy, euphoric periods where we're doing really well and we feel relatively stable. But, death, grief, loss of career, the financial issues within your relationships and the discord between family units, etc. And, add multiple layers onto that. How
Mhm.
do you help somebody to navigate these trajectories without sending them to 3 to 4 different types of providers?
Right.
And then you get lost in the lurch. There really is very little collaboration unless you're in an environment where you have a cohesive unit and office, which it doesn't really exist outside of maybe a few handfuls
Mhm.
in your community or your city. So I just wanted to deliver really great care and I wanted to see great outcomes. And that's what I'm seeing. I'm
Mm.
seeing patients that I might have been their 12th psychiatrist in their lifetime by the time they hit my office. And then I'm seeing the patients that I am their very first psychiatrist that they have trusted to really provide confidential information
Mhm.
to and hear them and listen to them and provide them guidance on different levels of
Mm.
life and in mental health.
So I'm very passionate about integrative psychology and integrative mental health as
Yeah.
well. And where did you learn all of that? Because I know it probably wasn't in med school.
Oh, no, it was not. I will say that during med school, we didn't learn these at least back then. I don't know if the systems at play right now in these healthcare systems and med schools, they're teaching these. But in residency, I dabbled in this myself. I think I remember at least 2 grand rounds I gave as a resident about more integrative methods of mental health and wellness and, herbal remedies or supplements and things like that that we can consider, again, out of the norm. And I was conducting some of that research and education on my own. It was very
Okay.
independently led.
Look at you.
And over the last 10 years, same thing,
Mm.
independent courses or
Mhm.
going to conferences, doing webinars. Mostly now it's virtual or at my own pace, readings, podcasts, for example,
Mhm.
and just education on an ongoing basis. Because as leaders in our field, you and I continuously need to have continuous education,
Right.
whether that be CME, CEUs, whatever it is. But I think it's enlightening, and
Mhm.
we need more of that.
Yeah, and it's such a great opportunity to pursue your passions rather than chase taking
Yes.
boring things that kind of
Yeah.
tick the box or just going to all the grand rounds at your hospital and hoping that's
Hmm.
enough. I mean, I really encourage people to pursue their passions and learn, go deep diving into some kind of crazy little adventure like acupuncture or something, to keep things kind of spicy, right?
Right.
So you
Right.
have a particular interest that I'm very excited about, and I want to know more. You
Yeah.
have this interest in music, dance, and then fashion. Okay, so and how
Hmm.
all those things tie into mental health. So can you walk us through how you integrated those passions into a mental health practice?
So, dependent on the individual that's in my practice, and if they want to delve into these things, because not everyone will have that desire to like talk
Mhm.
about fashion or music or dance. It really depends on that. And that's why every individual in my practice, we have a more customized treatment plan.
Mm.
But I was thinking in terms of who I am as a person and what's helped me on a personal level as a physician, as a psychiatrist, that have been of benefit to myself without medications, with some lifestyle adjustments, with diet and physical exercise and all of those things in mind, and augmenting some of my creative outlets, which are music, dance, and fashion,
Mhm.
and how that's played a role in my personal success and building in my relationships and just being who I am and being that
Mhm.
authentic person, leaning into that and helping others lean into that as well. So if you are a creative and you enjoy music, let's lean more into that and utilize music as a foundation point for your own mental health, starting your day with specific types of playlists or specific songs in mind,
Mhm.
helping you gain an outlet out of grief, sadness,
Mhm.
hopelessness with a specific type of music that will get you more energized, that might get you out of the house to take that walk, to go to the gym, to have that conversation with somebody else, to lean into music as a community collective
Mm,
where you're out in the community at a festival, at a concert, at whatever it is that your heart so desires, where everybody is dancing and feeling that energy and are uplifted, and that oxytocin and dopamine,
mhm.
everything is just
Yeah.
elevated as a collective. And then the fashion is really, that is augmenting your confidence. And fashion really, it's not just your attire, it's also the beauty. It's the, how do you feel about your hair? And do you
Mhm.
want to make a change that you've been intending to do so in the last several years that makes you feel more inclined to feel like yourself every single day? Do you want to learn about makeup and put on that red lip because that's what you feel like steps into your confident stride
Mhm.
in, your board meetings or whatever it is that you're lifting yourself into for
Mhm.
that day or whatnot?
I'm a huge fan of a prescriptive playlists or prescribing
Yeah.
songs to patients. Like, you know
Yes.
what you need? You need a
Mhm.
little like attitude. So I have like I love Queen Herbie, and there's a few other people that I used to prescribe some Lizzo songs just to have a little attitude and sass.
Love. Yes.
Just to say,
Yes.
listen, you got to get more confident in yourself,
Yep.
and what's the song that really just makes you want to feel happy? And I have several playlists that are goal oriented. Like, okay, this is my
Same.
before a big presentation playlist. Like, I can
Yep.
hype up, or this is my I'm kind of feeling down today. What's this happy
Yep.
music that makes me smile? So I really love that.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
so you have, we were talking a few weeks ago, and you mentioned a term that I had never heard of. So I'd love for you to
Uh-huh.
talk a little bit about this because it's sort of the deep, nerdy science behind music, which has tons of evidence, by the way. So, like doing pairing an unpleasant task with music makes it seem more
Mhm.
pleasant. Your brain responds to it as a more pleasant task. But you use the word binaurals. So I'm going to let you nerd
Mm.
out for a second and tell us about that.
I love that. So I on to augment what you were discussing about the playlist. So I have a Spotify profile in which I've built about, I think I'm around 7 playlists right now with different type of beats and opportunities, like stepping into your morning when you want a little bit of an augmentation dance, your gym list, etc. So, like, binaural beats is actually one of my playlists as well.
Mhm.
And when you and I were speaking a few weeks ago, we were talking about this as being something that could be an augmentation as a prescription for your patients, because what it is a really wonderful, like, free or very minimal subscription to any program. If you don't have Spotify, there are other apps, and we can talk about that as well. But what it really is, it's different sound frequencies when you're playing them on your headphones. So it could be your AirPods, it could be your Bose, whatever it is that you're using. And it creates perception of different beats in each ear. Okay.
Mhm.
And then your third beat is your brainwave activity. It's the third beat within the brain. So it's
Mhm.
influencing your brain waves to be much more active and actually associate either calm meditative states of mind or focus.
Mm.
So depending on the frequency of what you're choosing to have, so it might be activating more like the alpha, theta waves, other types of waves in our brain and our neurotransmitters and etc. That activity is being activated on different levels. So if you are finding that, oh, I have this task and I have like 3 of these things to do, they're very urgent, they're time limited, and I just don't want to do them because I can't focus and I'm completely distracted because it's on the bottom of my list and I
Mhm.
really don't have desire
Yeah,
to do it.
I feel that
You
way a
can
lot.
yes, right? We all do. Like, we
Mm,
just went through tax season. Nobody likes that, right?
mhm,
So what I always tell people is pair that with some music. And I want you to pair it with headphones on for binaural beats in particular, because otherwise those brain waves and that activity won't be as predominant.
Hmm.
Um, Slower rates, slower frequencies can help for stress reduction. It can help for relaxation, put you in a meditative state to actually help you sleep. And so the apps out there in Spotify as well, or Apple Music, etc., they have different versions of playlists that can get you into these. And then what I do is, dependent on what the patient's needs are, we'll go through, okay, here's your frequency level for this. Here's your frequency level for that. Here's how you search for those if they don't have the mobile apps like Open or Endeler. If those are not something that they're subscribed to, then we'll go through like Spotify and their platforms to find something that is meaningful to them, add that to their, saved playlists, and then that's it. And it's not a replacement for stimulants. It's not a replacement
Hmm.
for, other types of medicines. However, it is more of a holistic, uh, integrative tool that is very wildly successful.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say this because my daughter really always studies with headphones on. She
Uh-huh.
needs that extra, I don't know, close out. And it occurs to me that
Yes.
when I go to a coffee house or something, I do love that background noise, but to focus, but when it's in my headphones, there's something about that, the AirPods or whatever.
Yes.
And by the way, I just looked on Apple Music right now, binaural beats, and there's so many different options. And
Oh,
binaural beats
yes.
for deep focus, for
Yes.
sleep, for soothing,
Yep.
concentration. So, do you, just I didn't really prepare for this one, but I don't use Spotify, I use Apple Music. And so is there a public profile that people can follow for you and access your, how does Spotify work? I don't know if you can share or if that's
Yeah.
public.
So, yeah, Spotify works. I believe you need a subscription for it.
Yes.
It's a monthly or annual
Mhm.
subscription, but I'm unsure if you can access it, my profile, if you're not a member.
But if you are, because
However,
lots of people are members. So what's your
yes,
profile for your public profile for this kind of
it's
music?
Dr. Mona Amini.
Okay.
If they want to search Dr. Mona Amini, and I have my profile on my website, in my newsletters, I'm
Mhm.
always in my Instagram, I'm always sharing these.
Mhm.
And on a weekly basis, I have this fun thing I've been doing for about a year is on a Friday or a Saturday, I share my 5 to 6 or so favorite songs of the week,
Oh,
songs
okay.
that really spoke to me. Maybe I was at the gym, maybe some things like, that something inspired me to share it. And
Mhm.
that's my Vibe and Thrive. That's my weekly Vibe and Thrive. So I
Oh,
have
that's
people that
cute.
actually they're watching my stories for
Yeah, I
watching
think I
some
might
of
be one
those
of them now.
additions. Yeah.
I love a good rhyme, so that's good.
Yes.
I love Vibe and
Yes.
Thrive, very clever.
Yes.
So okay, so I could nerd out about music for a long time because I love music as well. But you are married, as you mentioned, to a
Mhm.
physician. So and you have kids, right? So
Yeah.
how do you manage working and spending time together and all of that chaos?
So I had mentioned this before that in my younger days, I thought
Mhm.
work-life balance was something that was achievable. It's not. There's no such thing as work-life
Mhm.
balance. So I always call it whole life wellness.
I like that.
And what I tell people is I have a very stringent priority tier hierarchy list. And so on my hierarchy list is my husband and my children as, top of the list. And then obviously, my work and my patients and all of the other things that I'm responsible for, that I manage, etc.
Mhm.
Because of that, things tier, and you might have days where you're focused way more on your children because they have events, or
Mhm.
you just want to be mindful and spend time with them and mother them and love them. There's other days where you're more focused on your career, your path,
Mhm.
your vision, and your gas pedal is on max throttle, and you've got to,
Mhm.
go. Those are the nights that you're spending until midnight or more, replying to emails, creating those visions. But my husband and I, we've been married almost 22 years. So
Mhm.
we have gone through the gamut of life together more than half our lives. And what we do is we always intend very at least once a month, if not more, to be, in our honeymoon phase and date each other all
Mhm.
over again. And so those dates keep things consistent. They keep that, the passion alive because you're communicating just with one another. There's nobody else around. This
Mhm.
is not a networking event. This is not a family dinner.
Mhm.
And sometimes we'll take trips together, just a weekend trip. Sometimes it'll be just a local date night. We check in, we process, we debrief nightly. I think that's very important. If we could go to the gym or do some activity together, obviously we'll do that as well. But we like to shut things off. We don't have the phones on at the dinner table. Like none of this exists. And it's really important to just deactivate a lot of what was activated in your life throughout the course of the day.
Mhm.
And structure that time for your family unit and your husband. I think that when you're a mother or a father and you have children, sometimes that's the ultimate priority. It's all about them, and your spouse or your partner is kind of like shed to the side. And I see this very commonly in
Mhm.
practice. They need just as much attention, if not more, than your children and your professional career. And I think that that's really intentional.
Mhm.
And we need to be nurturing that. And children are children. They want to be around mom. They want to be around dad. We are very intentional with our weekends, with our times together, and they know when mom needs some self-care days. Sometimes I'll take half a day, and I'll be shut in my home office here, and I'll be working. I'll be in and out doing laundry or something like that, but they know, don't bug mom, because
Right.
she's just in an activated state of mind, and she just needs to be very prioritized. And they get to see me so much so often. And those are very, again, very intentional times and moments and minutes and hours that I spend with them. Nothing else exists besides our unit. And
Mhm.
that's that whole life wellness, taking care of yourself, taking care of your partner, taking care of your children, and then
Mhm.
everything else will exist and will nourish and nurture over time.
Great. So you, in your bio online, you had a statement that I was intrigued by. It said, through her work, she's not just reshaping the conversation around mental wellness, she is redefining how it is lived. So I love that so
Mm.
much. I'd love to hear from you what you
Oh.
think that means.
I want everyone to know that mental health and treatment it's different for everyone. You and I can have a very different process of treatment plan and what we are engaging in terms of mental health and what our needs are based
Mhm.
on our history, based on our biopsychosocial, based on a number of factors. And I think with, all of the issues and chat out there, and all of these things that exist through social media and the internet, we always confine different types of mental health as only psychiatry. And I have to be crazy, quote unquote, to see the psychiatrist. I
Mm.
can see a therapist, but it's only for these one or two or three things.
Right.
And there's no middle ground. What I'm saying is, no, there is a middle ground, and it's a very vast middle ground. And guess what? There are really great therapists that practice in a very similar manner than me. There are psychiatrists that are out there that are very similar to me. Let's be a proponent of that and make a
Mhm.
change, because if we don't destigmatize mental health and create this platform where people can be outwardly and actually feel like they can talk to their friends, family
Mhm.
members, to a
Right.
professional about it, imagine how successful and loving a society we can have,
Mhm.
as opposed to creations of again, generational trauma and all of the other things that
Mhm.
exist. No disruption in relationships. You know immediately the red flags of somebody that you're on a second or third date with. Like,
Yeah.
no, this will not be a long-term solution for
Mhm.
me.
Yeah. And it's interesting. This is so cultural because I have a lot of friends. When I used to live in Miami, I had a lot of friends from Argentina, and they all loved that I was a psychologist, and they all love going to therapy. In Argentina, apparently, it's just
Interesting.
normal. Like, well, of course you have a therapist. Like, what do you do when you break up with someone?
Mm,
So like they do it as like, I need a little tune up. I'm going to go to the therapist.
yeah.
So I just think that's interesting that in culturally we've kind of had this stiff upper lip
Yeah.
model of living that like, oh God
Yes.
forbid you need support with your mental health or, a little tune up here and there. So, all right. So I have a few closing questions that I love to ask everybody. The first is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to an early career physician?
Early career physicians, I will tell you, your first career jump or your first career position that you take is not going to be the one that you are going to be in for the next 40 years. So don't feel like you have to make a decision today after residency of something that you're going to be in for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We, as millennials, Gen Z, Gen Alpha eventually, we have a tendency now to say, wow, this doesn't align with me. The mission and the value that is being driven within this office, healthcare system, et cetera, is not something that I can see as on a longitudinal level. So don't
Hmm.
be afraid to shift out of that
Right.
and create something for yourself
Okay.
eventually.
Great. Now, what advice would you give to your younger self?
I would give myself the grace that there's no number to things. There is no timeline to things. I think that as perfectionists, as really, really motivated individuals that all go into medicine or all go into psychology in all of our careers, because it's an attenuated process, right? It's not just 4 years of a bachelor and then you're done.
Hmm.
We need to give ourselves grace as to where you're at, living in the present moment and being thankful for it, because if you graduated in 2 years instead of four, in the long run, did that really make a difference? Or
Right.
did you really just bypass everything and all those beautiful experiences as an 18, 19, 20 year old that you could have had?
Hmm.
So hindsight is always 2020, but live in the present moment, enjoy your time, and if you need to extend things out, then let that happen because there
Right.
is no rush to life.
Yeah. And, as someone who's interviewed residents and had where I have to ask about a gap
Yeah.
and maybe there was a gap for whatever reason. Sometimes the story of why they took a gap demonstrates so much maturity and emotional
Yeah.
intelligence that you're like, I think I like this candidate better because
Yeah.
they know themselves, or they're willing to make tough decisions because they have responsibility. So,
Yes.
just as someone who's been through that and has interviewed many, many, many med students going into residency, usually if the person has a good reason why and they demonstrate that maturity and self insight, it's often makes them a more competitive candidate. So,
Yes.
um,
Absolutely.
yeah. So, what are you loving right now in medicine?
I love all of these new innovative tools. I've loved digital health for years. This was even before I was a big proponent of telehealth way back when it was before it was cool before COVID. So
Right.
many years before then.
Mhm.
But I'm in love with all of these digital apps and these tools, and the fact that a minimal subscription or just free, you can use, have access to all of these incredible tools that you could use on an integrative or holistic level. And that could be music, it could be something like Headspace or Calm, where it's on every level, kind of helping you into the body scan techniques, mindfulness, all of
Mhm.
these meditative states, and guiding you through that. And then, not to mention all of the other types of applications out there, the wearables and certain aspects of things that you used to only be able to use in the office, like neurofeedback or some of these strategies, where now you have the capability to have this at home. You can buy a red LED light for your own seasonal affective disorder, or
Right.
like
Yeah.
these lights that are amazing, and then just have these in the home. You don't need to go to a facility or an office for that
Mhm.
anymore. So I love that we're being more engaged in wellness in the home setting, so that on an individualized level, at any given point in time during the course of your day or evening, somebody can just utilize that tool for their own benefit.
All right. So what's next for you?
I always have something next for me. So I there's a lot in the works. There's a lot in the works right now. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, she's being
I'm
mysterious.
really
You'll have
in
to stay tuned
yeah.
to find out.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I feel compelled to ask a question because I have an answer for it too. What was the most therapeutic live show you've ever been to?
Oh my gosh. Back in December of 24, I went to the Anima concert at the Sphere. And
Okay.
he is a EDM DJ, progressive
Okay.
house,
Mhm.
melodic progressive house. And he had a show that is the most dynamic graphics in pairing of the EDM music that he was conducting live. And being in the Sphere and experiencing that was a surreal experience. Like there's no explaining it without explaining a little minutia, the, I guess, nugget of this. You had to have been there. You had to
Mhm.
experience it yourself.
So you'd
Phenomenal.
recommend that? That
I
ex
recommended it. I actually recommended it and talked it up to the point where friends and other people were like, "We're gonna go to the next one. We're gonna
Okay.
sign up. We're
Yeah.
gonna go to Vegas." And they ended up going, and it was just mind blowing for them,
Mhm.
and a really great experience for sure.
I have to tell you and the listeners that much less low tech, but if you ever just are feeling like the world may not be okay or that people aren't very good, I highly recommend the experience of seeing Michael Franti live sometime. He is like a
Mm,
human SSRI.
I
he's just
love that.
he's just his music is so positive. It's pretty simple, it's easy if you go
Yeah.
there and people are singing along. It's not going to take you long to figure out the chorus of most of his songs. He's kind of this rock reggae vibe. He
Yeah. Oh,
performs
love it.
barefoot. I've seen him perform in the pouring rain and he goes into the crowd and talks to people, but he brings little kids on stage. He has cute graphics in the back and just is very colorful, but he's always just with this message of that it's going to be okay and that
Mhm.
we're all good people and that we should just try to be a little even better people. So highly
I
recommend
love
that.
that.
And the other thing I'm seeing lately that I'm very intrigued by is in New York, there's this organization called Gaia Music Collective, and they're
Mhm.
doing pop-up choirs. And so
Yep.
hundreds of people are coming to like warehouses and doing singing in choirs like one day. They'll just come for an afternoon,
Yeah.
learn a pop song and sing together in harmony. And just seeing these videos is just so uplifting. It just seems so great.
It
And
really is.
I think that obviously would be very good connective tissue for people.
I love that.
So
I
many
love that. Very
so
similar to Michael is Lincoln Jesser. Look him up as well.
okay.
He has the same concept, but more on the house music level and
Mhm,
chill techno.
mhm.
Very similar. Very similar.
All right. So we have lots of homework, and our listeners have lots of homework. And if one of those things is they'd like to learn more about you or get on that email list or start following you for your
Sure.
Vibe and Thrive series,
Mhm.
where would they look?
On Instagram, I am mona.amini.md, or they can search my name, Mona Amini, MD. And online, if they go to my website, you can sign up for my newsletter on there. I also have a free stress detox toolkit, and other types of opportunities they can sign up for as well. And that website is Mona Amini MD monaaminimd.com.
Okay. Well, this has been a true pleasure. I love talking about these things. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and enthusiasm with us today. So thanks so much to all of you for joining us for this chat. We hope this show has you thinking about your own career and what action you can take to make it ideal for you right from the start. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and tell others to join us. We greatly appreciate your reviews and comments, which help us to grow to a wider audience. If you want to stay in touch, email me at practiceonpurpose@heyinfluent.com. Let me know what topics you want us to explore in future episodes. And remember, build your practice on purpose to stay connected to your purpose. I appreciate you joining us on this journey, and let's keep exploring together. Until next episode.